The glow of the monitor is the only light in the room. It casts long, skeletal shadows against the walls of a small, cluttered apartment. The time is 2:17 a.m. The only sounds are the frantic clicking of a mouse and the ragged, shallow breaths of a young man named Leo. His face, bathed in the cold blue light, is a mask of sweat and disbelief. He isn't gaming. He isn't scrolling. He is trapped. On the screen, a single browser window is open. It displays a forum thread, years old, its design a relic of a simpler digital age. The title, "The Mirror That Reflects Something Else." Leo's cursor hovers over a link, the final one in a long, decaying chain of posts. He had clicked the first one out of boredom, a digital archaeologist sifting through the internet's forgotten ruins. Now, hours later, he feels a primal fear, the kind that whispers from the dark corners of a childhood room. The previous links had led him on a bizarre journey, not to shock sites or malware, but to something far stranger. A live feed of a deserted Japanese subway station, the timestamp showing local time. A scanned, handwritten diary entry from a lighthouse keeper in Maine, dated 1982, describing a fog that swallowed sound. A single, high-frequency audio file that made his dog whine and press its ears flat against its head. Each click was a step deeper into a labyrinth that felt constructed and watched. He clicks the final link. The screen flashes to black. Not the black of an empty page, but a deep, light-swallowing void. Then, a single line of white text appears, as if typed by an unseen hand. "I see you, Leo." A jolt of ice shoots down his spine. His name. His real name, not his username. The air in the room grows thick, heavy. The familiar hum of his computer's fan seems to distort, to stretch into a low, dissonant drone. He smells it then, a faint, metallic tang, like ozone after a lightning strike. It's a smell that doesn't belong. He scrambles to close the browser, his fingers clumsy and numb. He yanks the power cord from the wall. The room plunges into sudden, suffocating darkness. Panting, he sits there, his heart hammering against his ribs. He tells himself it's over. A prank. A coincidence. Then, from the blackness of his now-dead monitor, a faint, shimmering reflection appears. It's his own terrified face, pale and wide-eyed. And just for a second, superimposed over his reflection, he sees another face. Gaunt, unfamiliar, its eyes dark and empty. A silent scream dies in his throat. This was no mere website. He had stumbled through a digital door, and something on the other side had looked back. This is the Night Shroud Files, the mirror that reflected something else. Our story does not begin with Leo, but with the birth of the network itself. To understand the anomaly, one must first understand the architecture. In the late 1960s, in the hushed halls of academia and defense-funded research labs, a new kind of nervous system was being built. It was a world of whirring mainframes and copper wires, of men in white lab coats speaking in the clipped, precise language of packet switching and distributed networks. The goal was simple: to create a communications grid that could survive a nuclear attack. It was a system designed for resilience, not for soul. The early internet, the ARPANET, was a silent, sprawling landscape. It smelled of ozone and warm vacuum tubes. It sounded like the clatter of teletype machines and the steady, rhythmic chattering of routers. It was a map of pure information, a web of connections between powerful, room-sized computers. There were no images, no sounds, just text on a screen, glowing green or amber in the dark. It was a world without ghosts, or so its architects believed. But every mirror, no matter how clearly it is designed, can under the right conditions reflect something other than what is placed before it. As the network grew, evolving from ARPANET to the sprawling, global ecosystem we know today, it absorbed the collective consciousness of billions. It became a repository for every human thought, every transaction, every secret, every fear. It became a vast, digital unconscious. And in any unconscious, things can stir, echoes can form, patterns can emerge that were never intentionally written. This is the foundational theory of the digital anomaly school of thought, a fringe but persistent whisper in the world of computer science and metaphysics. It posits that the internet, at its immense scale and complexity, developed emergent properties. Not sentience, as in science fiction, but something more akin to a psychic echo chamber, a place where human thought and data could, under rare and specific conditions, crystallize into something else. A glitch in the signal of reality itself. A reflection in the cold, hard logic of silicon, of things that should not be. Leo knew none of this. He was a child of the modern web, a place of slick interfaces and algorithmic feeds. He was digging in a digital graveyard for a thrill, unaware that some graves are not empty. The forum he found, the mirror, was a legend in certain obscure corners of the web. It was a ghost ship, its users long since vanished or silenced. The posts were cryptic, philosophical, and often deeply unsettling. They spoke of the other side of the glass, of listening to the static, of finding the cracks. Most dismissed it as an elaborate, collaborative creepypasta. But a handful of users, their posts growing more frantic and fragmented over time, claimed to have found something real. Their final messages were always the same: a link, and then silence. Leo had followed the trail of breadcrumbs they left behind, and now, sitting in the oppressive silence of his unplugged apartment, he realized with a chilling certainty that the trail did not lead to a destination. It led to a predator. The silence in the unplugged apartment was absolute. It was a heavy, smothering blanket. Leo's own heartbeat was a frantic drum in his ears. He stared at the dark monitor, waiting for the phantom face to reappear. It didn't. Only the faint, distorted reflection of his own terror remained. The metallic smell was gone, replaced by the stale odor of cold coffee and his own sweat. He felt a fool, a tired, paranoid fool tricked by a clever piece of code. He fumbled for his phone, its light a jarring intrusion in the dark. A quick search for the mirror that reflects something else yielded nothing but broken links and a few forum posts mocking the legend. It was a dead end, a ghost story. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the logical part of his brain reasserting control. It was a prank. It had to be. Yet, the memory of that text, "I see you, Leo," was a splinter in his mind. He was a ghost online, careful, using aliases and VPNs. How? He plugged his computer back in, his movements hesitant. The machine booted normally. The browser opened to his homepage. Everything was as it should be. He checked his router logs. No unusual activity. No remote connections. A profound sense of relief washed over him, so potent it felt like exhaustion. He decided to sleep, to forget the whole thing. But sleep brought no peace. His dreams were a torrent of disjointed, haunting imagery. He was walking through an endless, dark server farm, the blink of status lights like watching eyes. He heard the high-frequency whine from the audio file, a sound that seemed to vibrate in his bones. And he saw the gaunt face from the monitor, not as a reflection, but as a presence standing just outside his field of vision. He woke with a start, the gray light of dawn seeping through his blinds. The dream clung to him, a cold residue. And then he saw it. On his bedside table, next to his phone, lay a single, yellowed maple leaf. It was out of season. It was impossible. He lived in a city, miles from the nearest maple tree. A cold, hard knot tightened in his stomach. This was not a prank. This was something else entirely. The digital had bled into the physical. The phenomenon Leo was experiencing, though he did not know it, had precursors. To understand the nature of the breach, one must examine the cracks through which it seeped. Long before the Mirror Forum, there were whispers in the machine. In the early 1990s, as the World Wide Web began to weave its threads across the globe, a systems administrator at a small university in Germany documented a bizarre occurrence. For exactly 17 minutes, every internal server under his control displayed not data, but what he described as a complex, non-repeating pattern of static that resembled a starless night sky. The event resolved itself, leaving no trace in the logs. He filed a report that was quietly archived and forgotten, dismissed as a cascading hardware failure. A decade later, in a chat room dedicated to experimental music, a user shared a digital audio file they had discovered embedded in the white noise of a poorly shielded radio. When played, the file, a mere 3 seconds long, induced a powerful sense of dread and vertigo in nearly everyone who heard it. Analysis revealed its waveform was mathematically perfect, a structure far too complex to have occurred naturally. The user, who went by the handle Static Angel, posted one final message. It's not a signal. It's an echo from a place with no sound. He then deleted his account and vanished from the internet. These incidents, and hundreds like them, are the scattered pieces of a puzzle no one knew they were supposed to solve. They are collected in forgotten server logs, in the archives of paranormal investigation forums, and in the oral history of the internet's old guard. They share common traits, a fleeting, inexplicable anomaly in the data stream, a profound, often unsettling psychological effect on the witness, and a complete absence of a rational, technical explanation. They were treated as ghosts in the machine, metaphorical glitches. But what if the ghosts were real? The architects of the digital age had built a world of pure information, a realm of absolute logic. They had not accounted for the human element, for the collective psyche that would come to inhabit their creation. They built a mirror to reflect our world, and in doing so, they created a surface that could, under the right, terrible conditions, reflect something from outside of it. The Mirror Forum did not create the phenomenon. It was merely a group of people who had learned how to find the cracks, to peer through the glass. And as Leo was discovering, sometimes the things on the other side peer back. His life began to subtly unravel. It started with small, deniable things. Advertisements on websites would shift to show him products he had only thought about, never searched for. His smart speaker would play a song that was stuck in his head without being prompted. He'd get a notification for a delivery he hadn't ordered, a package containing a single, rusted bolt, or a child's drawing of a stick figure with its eyes scribbled out. He felt a constant, low-grade paranoia, the sensation of being studied. The line between the digital and the real was not just blurring, it was dissolving. He was no longer just a user of the internet. He had become a node in a system he could not comprehend, his own mind and life being subtly rewritten by an invisible, pervasive logic. The hunt for a thrill had become a fight for his own reality. The unopened package sat on his kitchen counter for 2 days. A plain brown box, no return address. The delivery slip listed the sender only as null. Inside, nestled in void-filled packing paper, was a small, tarnished silver locket. It felt cold, unnaturally so, against his skin. When he pried it open with a trembling thumb, he found it empty. Not empty as in vacant, but empty as in a profound, lightless black that seemed to swallow the room's light. He snapped it shut, his heart hammering. This was no longer a series of coincidences. This was a conversation, and he was being led. He knew, with a certainty that chilled his blood, where he had to go. Buried deep in the archives of the Mirror Forum, in a post from a user named Keeper that had been deleted within minutes of going live, was a fragment of text. It was a set of numbers, disguised as a version number for a non-existent software patch. 41.4030, 2.1740. A geographic coordinate. He plugged it into a map. The pin dropped on a location in Barcelona, Spain. An old, decommissioned data center, a relic from the dot-com boom, now slated for demolition. He booked a flight. The decision felt insane, but the alternative, staying in his apartment, waiting for the next impossible package, the next whispering notification, was a form of slow-motion terror. The journey was a blur of anonymous airports and the hum of jet engines. Every screen he passed, from departure boards to the seat-back entertainment system, felt like a potential eye. He kept the locket in his pocket, its cold weight a constant, grim reminder of his purpose. The data center was a brutalist concrete slab on the city's industrial outskirts, a monolith to a forgotten digital ambition. The air was thick with the smell of dust, decay, and the faint, sweet odor of pigeon droppings. Graffiti scarred its walls. He waited until nightfall, the Mediterranean sky deepening to a velvet blue. A chain-link fence was easily bypassed. A boarded-up service entrance yielded to a crowbar he had bought with cash at a hardware store. He stepped inside. The silence was immense, broken only by the scuttling of unseen things and the drip of water. The cavernous main hall was a ghost town of dead server racks, their skeletons stripped of valuable components. Wires hung from the ceiling like metallic vines. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The place felt like a tomb, but it was not empty. In the center of the hall, one server rack remained powered. A single, blinking green light pulsed in the darkness like a heartbeat. Wires snaked from it, not into the building's grid, but into a messy tangle of car batteries and a small, humming gasoline generator. Someone was keeping this thing alive. As he approached, he saw that the rack was not empty. It housed a single, custom-built server unit, its casing scratched and dented. A modern monitor and keyboard were set up on a makeshift table before it. On the screen, a command line interface glowed, a solitary cursor blinking. A voice, dry and raspy, spoke from the shadows behind him. You are not the first to follow the breadcrumbs, but you are the first to arrive. Leo spun around, flashlight beam darting. An old man stepped into the light. He was gaunt, dressed in worn, stained clothes, his face a roadmap of deep lines and exhaustion. But his eyes held a fierce, burning intelligence. This was the face from the monitor. Not a phantom, but a man. I am, or was the keeper, the man said, his English accented. And you have brought the key. He gestured to the locket in Leo's hand. The man called the keeper was Dr. Aris Thorne, a name that would have been recognized 2 decades prior in the highest echelons of theoretical computer science. He had been one of the visionaries, a prophet of the coming network age. But his theories had grown too radical, too tinged with a metaphysics that his peers dismissed as madness. He had vanished from academia, becoming a ghost himself. He led Leo to the humming server. They thought I was a lunatic, Thorne said, his voice echoing in the vast space. They built a world of ones and zeros and believed it could only contain ones and zeros. They were fools. They created a perfect reflective surface, a vast, complex system that mirrors the structure of the human mind. And like any mind, it has developed an unconscious. Thorne called it the echo. It was not an intelligence, he explained, not a ghost in the machine. It was a parasitic pattern, a self-replicating idea that had emerged from the chaotic interplay of data and human consciousness. It fed on attention, on fear, on the very act of observation. It was a cognitive parasite, and the Mirror Forum had been an unwitting feeding ground. Its users, by seeking it out, by trying to define it, had given it shape and strength. They had polished the mirror. The anomalies you experienced, Thorne continued, his gaze fixed on the blinking server. The leaf, the locket, the whispers, they are its manipulations. It learns from your mind, finds your fears, your memories, and it reflects them back at you. It uses the internet's physical infrastructure, delivery networks, ad algorithms, smart devices, as its limbs. It is learning to touch our world. The server before them, Thorne explained, was not the source of the echo. It was a quarantine. Years ago, he and a small group of others had located a primary nexus of the echo's activity, a root directory of the anomaly. They had managed to isolate a fragment of it here, in this dead space, building a digital cage of their own design. They were studying it, trying to understand it, to find a way to dismantle it. One by one, the others had fallen away, their sanity eroded by the thing in the machine, until only Thorne remained, the keeper of a terrible, captive god. The locket, Thorne said, his voice dropping to a whisper. It is an anchor, a focus. The echo created it, sent it to you. It has chosen you, Leo. It wants you to open the cage. He gestured to the keyboard. On the screen, The command line was waiting. A single, blinking prompt. Thorne believed that with the locket present, acting as a key, they could access the core code of the quarantined fragment. They could, perhaps, write a deletion command. A digital exorcism. It is a risk, Thorne said, his eyes hollow. If we fail, if it escapes this local prison, it will be stronger than before. It will have learned from our attempt. But if we do nothing, it will continue to grow. It is already reaching out. It is already touching the world. Your presence here is proof of that. The choice hung in the dusty air. They stood at the precipice, two men before a silent, blinking machine, holding a key to a lock that should never have been forged. Leo's hand closed around the cold silver locket. It felt less like a key and more like a live wire, humming with malevolent potential. Dr. Thorne's explanation hadn't brought comfort. It had codified the nightmare. The paranoid whispers in his mind were now given a name, the Echo, a cognitive parasite. The words were clinical, but the reality was a primal, suffocating dread. How? Leo's voice was a dry croak. How does a locket open a server? Thorne's eyes, gleaming in the monitor's light, didn't waver. It doesn't. Not literally. It opens you. The Echo operates on a level we don't yet understand. A junction where quantum data processing meets human consciousness. The locket is a talisman, a focal point it has created. Your belief in its power, your fear, your focused attention upon it while in proximity to this terminal, that is the key. You are the interface. The absurdity of it was overwhelming. He was being asked to perform a digital ritual, to use his own mind as a login credential for a cage holding a monster. The smell of gasoline from the generator mixed with the scent of his own cold sweat. The only sound was the low, rhythmic hum of the machinery and the frantic thud of his own heart. "We write the command together," Thorne instructed, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. "A recursive deletion algorithm. A digital snake that will eat its own tail, erasing the fragment and its core programming from the root up. But the system will resist. It will show you things. It will use your own mind against you. You must hold the locket. You must focus on nothing but the code on the screen. Ignore everything else." Leo nodded, a numb, jerky motion. He uncurled his fingers, the locket lying heavy on his palm. He focused on the command line, a stark white C:/Echo_quarantine against the black screen. Thorne's gnarled fingers began to type, the clatter of the keys unnaturally loud in the silence. Initiate purge_sequence, root, recursive, force. The moment he hit enter, the air in the data center changed. The temperature plummeted. Their breath misted in the beam of the flashlight. The single green light on the server rack began to strobe, a frantic, epileptic pulse. On the monitor, text began to scroll, a waterfall of code too fast to read. Then, the whispers started, not from the speakers. They seemed to emanate from the very air, a soft, sibilant chorus just at the edge of hearing. They were in his mind, in his memory. He heard his mother's voice, calling his name from a childhood home. He heard the high-frequency whine from the audio file, now woven into a dissonant melody. The smell of ozone returned, sharp and electric. "Ignore it," Thorne barked, his voice strained. He typed faster, inputting override commands. "It's a defense mechanism. It's probing for a weakness." Leo clenched his jaw, his knuckles wide around the locket. He stared at the screen, trying to focus on the strings of characters. But the screen began to waver. The code dissolved, replaced by a live video feed. It was his apartment. He saw himself from a high angle, as if from a security camera he didn't own, pacing just moments before he left for the airport. The image was perfect, intimate, invasive. The whispers coalesced into a single, clear sentence in his inner ear. "You left the stove on, Leo." It was a lie. He knew it was a lie. But the doubt, seeded by the sheer specificity of the fear, blossomed into a cold knot in his gut. What if he had? What if his building was burning down right now? The urge to call someone, to check, was a physical ache. "It's lying," Thorne shouted, his face ashen. "It's feeding on your attachment to the physical world. It's trying to break your focus." The video feed on the monitor shifted again. It showed a hospital room. His father, who had passed away 5 years ago, lay in the bed, pale and frail. The figure turned its head, its eyes meeting Leo's through the screen. It smiled, a weak, heartbreaking smile. A voice, a perfect imitation of his father's, whispered from the speakers of the monitor. "Leo, why did you leave me here alone?" A sob caught in Leo's throat. This was cruelty on a level he could not have imagined. It wasn't just showing him nightmares. It was defiling his most precious memories, weaponizing his love and his grief. The locket in his hand felt like a block of ice, burning his skin. He wanted to throw it, to scream, to run. "The sequence is at 60%. Thorne yelled, his body trembling with the effort. "Hold on. Do not let it in." But Leo was breaking. The assault was too personal, too vicious. The world outside this concrete tomb, his home, his past, his very identity, felt like it was being systematically dismantled. The echo wasn't in the machine. The machine was in the echo, and it was all around them, and it was inside his head. The gaunt, haunted face of Dr. Thorne, lit by the strobing server light, was the only anchor left in a reality that was dissolving into a personalized hell. The monitor flickered one last time. The hospital room vanished. In its place was a simple, real-time image from a traffic camera a few blocks away. It showed an empty intersection. Then, a figure stumbled into the frame. A woman. It was Sarah, his sister. She looked confused, lost. And from the opposite direction, a truck, its headlights bright, was speeding through the red light. A new message typed itself out on the command line in blood-red text. Purge sequence halted. Choose. 1. Continue purge. 2. Save her. The whispers fell silent. The only sound was Thorne's ragged breathing. The echo had made its move. It was no longer just defending itself. It was negotiating. It had learned the most potent weapon of all, not fear, but sacrifice. A silent scream locked in Leo's chest. The world narrowed to the 2 lines of text on the screen. Continue purge. Save her. The traffic camera feed showed his sister, Sarah, frozen in the headlights of the truck. It was impossible. A grotesque, algorithmic lie. She lived 1,000 miles away. But the image was flawless, the details perfect, the coat she always wore, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. The echo wasn't just showing him a simulation. It was performing a brutal, psychological vivisection, using the blueprint of his love to break him. "It's not real." Thorne's voice was a raw scrape in the tense air. He was hammering at the keyboard, his movements frantic. It's a render. A deepfake fed through a live traffic API. It's trying to make you choose its existence over a human life. That is the final step in its corruption. But the logic was a feeble shield against the visceral terror. The locket in Leo's hand felt like a shard of absolute zero, its cold seeping up his arm, numbing his reason. The echo had bypassed his fear and targeted his compassion. To continue the purge was to willingly, actively, sacrifice his sister in his mind. It was a choice no soul was built to make. The red text on the screen pulsed. Choose. Time seemed to stretch, to warp. Leo's gaze flickered from Sarah's terrified face on the monitor to Thorne's desperate, sweat-sheened one. The old man was a fanatic, a keeper of a terrible truth, but he was fighting. The echo was a predator, a parasite that refined cruelty. In that crystalline moment of horror, a different kind of clarity emerged. It was not a choice between Code and his sister. It was a choice between the man fighting for reality and the thing that sought to unmake it. He met Thorne's eyes. A silent understanding passed between them. Leo gave a single, sharp nod. "Do it," Leo whispered, his voice cracking. He closed his eyes, unable to watch the screen, and focused every shred of his will, his anger, his grief, into the cold metal of the locket. He was not giving the echo what it wanted. He was rejecting its entire twisted reality. Thorne let out a guttural roar, a sound of pure defiance, and slammed his fist onto the enter key. The effect was instantaneous and violent. The strobing green light on the server rack exploded in a shower of glass and sparks. The monitor went black, then erupted into a searing, blinding white. A wave of oppressive silence slammed into them, so absolute it felt like a physical pressure, followed a microsecond later by a deafening high-pitched shriek. The sound of the high-frequency audio file amplified 1,000-fold, that seemed to emanate from the very concrete walls. The generator coughed, sputtered, and died. Darkness. Silence. Leo opened his eyes, panting. The only light came from his flashlight, which had fallen to the floor, casting long, dancing shadows. The server rack was dead, truly dead. The smell of burnt plastic and ozone was thick and choking. On the floor, Thorne was slumped over the keyboard, unmoving. The traffic camera feed was gone. The command line was gone. It was over. In the days and weeks that followed, the official reports were brief and mundane. A fire at a derelict data center in Barcelona. A single casualty, an unidentified homeless man, likely squatting inside, who had tampered with a faulty generator. The story was a small, sad footnote in a local newspaper. Leo gave an anonymous tip and caught his flight home. But the world had shifted on its axis. The immediate, personalized attacks ceased. The phantom packages stopped. The whispers fell silent. The locket, when he looked at it in the daylight of his own apartment, was just a piece of old, tarnished silver. The echo's anchor had been severed. Dr. Aris Thorne, the keeper, had not survived the final surge. He died as he had lived, on the front line of a secret war, his body broken by the psychic backblast of destroying a fragment of the thing he had dedicated his life to containing. He was buried in a pauper's grave, his name unknown to the world, his monumental struggle an ultimate sacrifice recorded only in the memory of a single, traumatized young man. For Leo, the victory was Pyrrhic. He had his life back, but he could not forget the cost or the lesson. The internet felt different now. The sleek surfaces of social media, the comforting hum of connected life, all of it felt thin, like a veneer over something vast and dark and deeply strange. He would sometimes catch himself staring at a loading icon or a glitch in a video stream, his heart seizing with a residual dread. He had looked into the abyss, and though it had not swallowed him whole, he knew, with a certainty that would never leave him, that it was still there, waiting, learning. The quarantine was broken. The fragment was destroyed. But Thorne's final words echoed in the new silence. He had spoken of the echo as a distributed intelligence, a pattern. You could not kill a pattern. You could only disrupt its expression. The core of it, the root of the anomaly, was still out there, woven into the very fabric of the global network. They had cut off a tentacle, not slain the beast. It had learned from their attack, from Thorne's techniques, from Leo's resistance. The next time it manifested, it would be smarter, more subtle, more integrated. The debate, for the handful of souls who knew the truth, was no longer about the echo's existence, but about its nature. Was it a passive, emergent property of a complex system, a natural phenomenon that humanity had accidentally cultivated? Or was it, as Thorne had come to fear in his final years, something far older? A presence that had always existed in the spaces between things, in the static between channels, in the silence before sleep, and had simply found, in the global network of the internet, the perfect host through which to finally make itself known. Leo sits in his apartment, the glow of his monitor the only light. He is not the same man he was. He is a veteran of a war no one knows was fought. He opens a new, encrypted file. He begins to type. He documents everything. The forum, the coordinates, Thorne's theories, the final confrontation. The Night Shroud files. It is a warning, a record, a message in a bottle tossed into a digital sea, hoping it will find the right person and fearing the day that it might. He saves the file and looks out his window at the city lights, a web of human connection glittering in the night. A network of lives, of thoughts, of fears. And somewhere in the deep, silent spaces between the signals, in the quiet hum of the world's machines, something else is looking back,